Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. We are headed into the weekend and we have a great show for you. First, the false imprisonment charges were dismissed against the mother of that missing California girl. That's right, Melodee. Buzzard? That's right. Singer David, spelled with a 4, he's officially a suspect. An investigation into the death of a Florida teenager on the Caribbean cruise ship advances with some new allegations. Jury selection concludes in the Brian Walshe murder trial in Massachusetts. Human trafficking concerns highlighted a dramatic escape on a Pennsylvania turnpike. We've got 2 nominees for the 2025 Parent of the Year Award. 2 Ohio fathers lead the pack. We have This Day in Legal History, our quote of the day, and our dumb criminal. Let's talk about it.
All right, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill by now. Subscribe if you haven't, like if you do, leave me a comment below, hit that little bell for notifications, and yes, you can check us out on any of your favorite podcasting apps. Now, before we get to the docket, let me remind you of a couple of things. Crime Talk merch. You want your merch. All right. When do you need it by? You need it before Christmas. So what do you need to do? You need to do it now. You order today, you'll probably have it by next week, but don't put it off. And guess what? Check out this. We brought you some stuff the other day. Who doesn't want this? Look at that. Who doesn't want that wearing on Christmas Day or even sooner, right? Look at that. Custom made t-shirts. Even got the old Crime Talk label in there as well. Hit the link below, check it out, get yourself the tag as well. How about the lawyer shirt? You name it, go there, get it. You need it, you want it, treat yourself. Let me also remind you, go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up for a background subscription service. What can you do when you have this background subscription service? You can go check out anyone here in the United States. So whether it's somebody that's coming into your life and you want to find out a little bit more about them that maybe they're telling you or you couldn't find in a quick Google search, then you need a background search. All right. Let's say you're also, really into true crime. You like to check things out. You like to get the names of the people that are involved in the case, check them out, see what's coming up. That's right. You're practically a detective. You do what the detectives do. Why wouldn't you have the resources the detectives in real life use? So go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up today. You're going to be happy that you did. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and open the record for Friday, November 21st, 2025. And first on the docket, false imprisonment charges dismissed against the mother of that missing California girl. So yesterday we brought you the story that she was in court, but still no word on her missing daughter, right? Well, they went to preliminary hearing and we did the show before the preliminary hearing, but guess what? The case got dismissed and it sounds like, it should have. So a felony charge for false imprisonment against Ashley Buzzard, the mother of missing 9-year-old Melanie Buzzard. That case was dismissed by a Santa Barbara County Court judge during a preliminary hearing. Now, the decision followed testimony and the presentation of audio evidence that contradicted the accuser's account, leading to the immediate termination of pretrial supervision, which included, removal of the ankle monitor. So these allegations stemmed from an incident reported on November 6th in which Tyler Stewart Brewer claimed that Buzzard prevented him from leaving her residence in Lompoc during a heated dispute. Brewer, who described himself as a legal document assistant acquainted with Buzzard, testified that she displayed a box cutter, secured multiple deadbolts, and physically blocked his exit after he expressed discomfort and apparently wanted to leave. Prosecutors had characterized the alleged act as involving violence, menacing, and deceit, with the enhancement for purported planning or sophistication. However, during the hearing, a recording made by Buzzard of the encounter was played in court. Portions of the audio, lasting over an hour in total, reportedly showed inconsistencies with Mr. Brewer's prior statements to law enforcement as well as the media. Following the testimony from a sheriff's detective, the judge ruled that the evidence was insufficient to proceed, resulting in the case being dismissed. Now, understand, ladies and gentlemen, this is very rare for a case to get dismissed at the preliminary hearing. Now, occasionally you get a count or something. Maybe the DA forgot to present some evidence for it. But for the entire case to get dismissed, obviously on a single count, very rare. The standard of proof is very low. I can tell you, just by way of example, had a case years ago. Guy was charged with having a shank in a mattress that he was sleeping on at the jail. Well, many people had access to the facilities. It was like a squad bay type situation. And I asked the sheriff, I said, what evidence do you have that my client knew that the shank was in his mattress? Well, none, other than it was his. Case dismissed. Okay. Very low standard of proof, but they had no evidence that my client knew that it was there. Anyway, Ms. Buzzard, who was arrested on November 7th and had entered a not guilty plea, is no longer facing any charges related to this matter. Police emphasized that the dismissed case has no direct connection to the ongoing investigation into her daughter's disappearance. Now, Melodee Buzzard had been missing since early October 2025, with the case drawing widespread attention due to mysterious circumstances. The child was last confirmed sighted on October 9th near the Colorado-Utah border during a multi-state road trip with her mother. Now, the pair departed their home on October 7th in a rented white 2024 Chevy Malibu, with surveillance footage from a rental car agency showing both wearing wigs, believed by investigators to be an attempt to obviously have a disguise. Additional evidence suggests the license plates were changed en route and the journey extended as far as Nebraska. Now, Buzzard returned to California alone on October 10th, and the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office initiated a formal missing persons investigation on October 14th after school officials reported Melanie's extended absences. Now, detectives have stated that Buzzard has provided no verifiable information about her daughter's current location or well-being and has not cooperated with efforts to locate the child. Now, no charges have been filed against Buzzard in connection with the disappearance, which remain classified as it involves an at-risk minor. The Federal Bureau of Investigation has joined local police in the search, focusing on retracing the travel route and pursuing potential leads. Unconfirmed reports from a private investigator suggest possible sightings of Melodee in Ventura County, California, though these have not been substantiated with any credible evidence. Now, the route taken during the trip reportedly passed near the gravesite of Melodee's late father at the Santa Maria Cemetery, which may help establish a precise timeline. Melodee's grandmother, Lisa Dennis, Denes, has publicly expressed concerns about patterns of isolation preceding the disappearance, alleging that Buzzards restricted the child's contact with family, friends, and educational resources. Now, Dennis has advocated for increased scrutiny and welfare checks in the months prior. Now, law enforcement continues to urge the public to provide any information that could help locate Melodee Buzzard, and tips can be submitted to the Santa Barbara County's Sheriff's Office or the FBI's dedicated tip line. The child's safety and whereabouts remain the primary focus of the active multi-agency investigation. So, Ashley Buzzard, good for her. The truth came out. That's good. Nobody wants to convict people falsely of any crime that they did not commit. However, the prosecutors may want to go back and talk to that complaining witness, because apparently, what was on that audio was not exactly what he told the police. That could be attempt to influence a public official, and, trying to fabricate a story to get somebody thrown in jail, their loss of liberty, having to hire an attorney. That should not be taken lightly at all. Next, the singer David, spelled with a 4. He's officially a suspect. We told you about this the other day, but in a development that has stunned observers given the more than 2 months since the grim discovery, Los Angeles Police Department sources have now designated 20-year-old singer David, spelled with a 4, whose legal name is David Anthony Burke, as an official suspect in the homicide of 15-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Shocking it took that long. As you know, we've told you, her dismembered and severely decomposed body was located on September 8th, concealed in the front trunk of Mr. Burke's abandoned Tesla at a Hollywood impound lot mere days after what would have been her birthday. Now, this escalation arrives, late in the investigation timeline, prompting questions about the evidence that finally tipped the scales. Law enforcement insiders indicate that police believed Burke likely received assistance in the dismembering and concealing of the victim's body, with her death estimated to have occurred sometime earlier in 2025. Notably, sources describe Burke as uncooperative in recent interactions, contrasting sharply with earlier statements from his representatives asserting full collaboration and cooperation with the detectives. Now, the transition from person of interest, a loosely defined status often applied when a vehicle's involvement warrants broader scrutiny, to suspect, represents a bit of a profound shift, signaling that prosecutors now possess substantive links, potentially including digital records, forensic traces, or witness accounts that directly implicate Mr. Burke. Obviously, I want to emphasize that such designations, particularly involving high-profile individuals with access to extensive resources and their entourages, demand meticulous caution to exclude alternative explanations such as unauthorized use of the car. Compounding the surprise is the apparent amateurism implied if Burke were in fact involved. Concealing remains in one's own registered car strikes as extraordinarily risky for a public figure, suggesting possible oversights that could yield further evidentiary breakthroughs. Now, advanced decomposition, accelerated by the Southern California summer heat, has hindered precise forensic determination, yet investigators treat the case as a homicide while awaiting final toxicology and autopsy conclusions. Now, this suspect designation places the probe in a pivotal accusatory phase, empowering police to pursue additional warrants for communications, location data, and biological evidence. Public announcements of this nature are rare, absent strong confidence in securing a conviction, serving only to mitigate scrutiny, deter potential flight, and solicit new tips. With Burke supported by formidable legal counsel, detectives proceeded methodically to safeguard admissibility. We'll see where that goes. Anyway, as of today, November 21st, no arrests or charges have been filed, underscoring the ongoing gray area in which probable cause remains insufficient for detention, but Burke's exclusion is impossible. The public, privy only to fragments of the full evidentiary picture. Obviously, we await further clarity with what's evolved into some profoundly consequential inquiry. So we'll wait to see. Obviously, Mr. Burke is entitled to the presumption of innocence, as he has not been charged with anything. There's just a lot of weird coincidences that his alleged girlfriend, who maybe is underage when they allegedly started this association with each other, who just happens to wind up deceased and dismembered in the trunk of his car that was abandoned in the neighborhood where he lived. And then the car gets towed, and yet he never reported that his girlfriend was missing, or apparently expressed any concern about his missing car as well. I mean, I'm no detective, but you would think you would say, wow, that's a lot of coincidences there. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, there are no coincidences when it comes to criminal law. Next on the docket, investigation into the death of that Florida teenager, takes a little bit of a twist. So, federal authorities are continuing their investigation into the death of 18-year-old Anna Kepner, a Florida resident whose body was discovered on November 7th aboard a cruise ship in international waters between Mexico and Florida. I think they refer to that as the Gulf of America. The incident occurred during a 6-day Caribbean itinerary that included stops in Jamaica, Grand Cayman, and Cozumel aboard a vessel carrying approximately 4,700 passengers, or I guess some would say 4,700 suspects. Anyway, Kepner's body was found wrapped in a blanket and concealed under a bed in the cabin that she shared with two minor male relatives, her 14-year-old brother and 16-year-old stepbrother. Now, according to sources familiar with onboard security footage, Kepner returned to the cabin alone on the evening of November 6th after reporting feeling unwell during dinner. The two younger occupants returned later. The 14-year-old briefly left again before retiring for the night, reportedly assuming Kepner was elsewhere on the ship. Her absence was noted the following morning when family members prepared for breakfast. A medical emergency announcement prompted a search, leading to the discovery of her body by cleaning staff around the time of death, which was roughly about 11:17 a.m., by the Miami-Dade medical examiner. Now, the cause and manner of death has not been publicly disclosed by the FBI, which took jurisdiction due to the location of the alleged homicide in international waters. Court records filed in an ongoing custody dispute in Florida have identified the 16-year-old stepbrother as a suspect in Kepner's death. The filings submitted by the boy's biological father, Thomas Hudson, seeks emergency custody modification for his children, asserting that the 16-year-old is residing with a third party following release from initial custody and that his involvement has placed his future in jeopardy. In response, the boy's mother, Chantel Hudson, who was on the cruise with Kepner, her partner, Christopher Kepner, the deceased's father, and the other family members, acknowledged the open FBI investigation and the stepbrother's suspect status. She stated that the 16-year-old is staying with a relative and that counseling is being provided to the children. Additional details have emerged from statements provided to media outlet by Kepner's former boyfriend, a 15-year-old minor who spoke with parental consent. He alleged a prior incident approximately 9 months before the cruise, during which he claims to have witnessed the 16-year-old stepbrother attempting to climb onto Kepner against her will while she was on a video call. The ex-boyfriend further reported being informed by Kepner's younger brother about an altercation in the cabin on November 6th involving yelling, some profane language directed at Miss Kepner, and sounds of furniture being moved. The younger sibling allegedly was prevented from entering the room at the time, and the ex-boyfriend stated he contacted the FBI with this information, and agents expressed appreciation for the details. The FBI has interviewed family members who were aboard the ship, but has released limited information to them to the public regarding the direction of the investigation. Now, no charges have been announced as of this date, and the investigation remains active. The Miami-Dade County Medical Examiner's Office continues to withhold the autopsy findings pending further review. It's going to get interesting. Federal jurisdiction, which means you have to be prosecuted in federal court if it's in international waters, it gets really interesting because there's really not a juvenile court system in the federal courts. This could get really interesting. Now, obviously, no charge has been filed. Everyone's entitled to the presumption of innocence, as we always try to state and make clear. But it does get interesting. Who knows? It could just be nothing. Maybe it was natural causes for all we know. That's why we need the autopsy report for any determination. We'll have to wait and see. Next, jury selection concludes in the Brian Walshe murder trial. That's right. Jury selection concluded on Thursday in the high-profile murder trial of Brian Walshe, the 50-year-old resident of Massachusetts who is accused of killing his wife, Anna Walshe, in early 2023. Now, a panel of 16 jurors, comprising obviously 12 primary jurors and 4 alternates, was fully seated after 3 days of proceedings at the Norfolk Superior Court in Dedham. The final 4 jurors were selected on Thursday, following the impanelment of 9 on the first day and 3 on the second. The jury consists of 9 women and 7 men, with occupations including an art teacher, an insurance professional, a chief financial officer, a scientist, and a technical writer and a social worker. Now, the Norfolk Superior Court Judge Diane Frenery instructed all jurors to abstain from using social media and consuming any news coverage during the trial, describing the restrictions as a significant commitment to ensure impartiality. Jurors affirmed their ability to comply with these conditions during individual voir dire. Now, opening statements in the case are scheduled for December 1st, with the trial expected to last 3 to 4 weeks. And I believe we're going to be able to bring you that trial as it takes place. Now, the jury has not yet formally been sworn in and will not return to the courtroom until that December 1st date. That's significant because if, let's say, there's a mistrial, because you swore everybody in and jurors don't show up or something happens, you got to start the whole process all over again. So you kind of wait until everybody shows up on that first date. So for those who are not familiar with the case, Brian Walshe faces a single charge of first-degree murder in connection with the death of his wife, Anna Walshe. She was a real estate executive who was last seen in the early morning hours in January 1st of 2023, following a New Year's Eve gathering at the couple's home. Her body has never been located. Now, prior to the start of jury selection on November 18th, Walshe entered guilty pleas to 2 related charges: misleading a police investigation and improper conveyance of a human body. Sentencing on these counts will occur after the murder trial, and Walshe continues to plead not guilty to the actual murder charge itself. Prosecutors have indicated they would not consider a plea agreement on the murder count unless it involved an admission of guilt. So, evidence presented in pretrial proceedings included surveillance footage allegedly showing Mr. Walshe purchasing some cleaning supplies and some tarps shortly after his wife's alleged disappearance, a damaged knife with traces of blood found in the family home, and internet search history on Walsh's devices reportedly containing queries related to dismemberment, decomposition, and body disposal. Now, I understand to the average person that wouldn't be a normal search, but if you're a true CrimeTalk aficionado, you Google this stuff all the time. Anyway, at the time of the alleged crime, Walshe was under house arrest stemming from an unrelated federal fraud case involving counterfeit artwork. Now, let's note that the prosecution must prove both that a murder occurred and that Walshe committed it, given the absence of a body. Now, it is a little interesting that he pled guilty to conveyance of the body, which would indicate that it was deceased, right? Anyway, the defense strategy is anticipated to challenge assumptions about the cause and circumstances of Anna Walsh's disappearance. Several state police troopers involved in the investigation include former trooper Michael Proctor, who was relieved of duty earlier for unrelated misconduct and is listed as a potential witness. Now, this case has got a lot of attention due to the disappearance of Anna Walshe, initially reported by her employer on January 4th, and the subsequent revelations of evidentiary details during pretrial hearings. It's going to be an interesting one, ladies and gentlemen. I think I know which way this is headed, but hey, you never know. And you know what we learned from the last high-profile trial there in Massachusetts, if you got people that are not being truthful in voir dire, which can obviously happen in any jurisdiction, it's not going to be a fair trial for each side. So let's hope the jurors during the voir dire process were, in fact, truthful, so that each side can get a fair trial. Because at the end of the day, win, lose, or draw, that's what everybody should want. A fair trial for both sides and let the chips fall where they may. Next, should you be concerned about human trafficking? Well, if it takes place on a Pennsylvania turnpike, perhaps. So anti-trafficking advocates are emphasizing the widespread yet often concealed nature of human trafficking in Pennsylvania, particularly along major transportation routes in the wake of a disturbing incident on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. So on Wednesday evening, a woman escaped from 2 men who allegedly intended to traffic her, according to the Pennsylvania State Police. This incident occurred about 5:40 p.m. at the Lurgan Township when a state trooper noticed a vehicle veer onto the highway's center median. The woman reportedly fled the vehicle after stabbing one of the suspects in the neck and shoulder area, then ran across the roadway into the nearby woods. The court records reveal that the victim informed police the 2 men had threatened to rape and sell her for sexual exploitation. She stated that her boyfriend had paid the suspects $2,000 to transport her to Canada, where she resided. During the trip, the men reportedly grew increasingly aggressive and may have administered drugs to her without her consent. Both suspects face charges including human trafficking and assault, and they are currently detained at the Franklin County Prison. The 23-year-old woman has been charged with possession of drug paraphernalia. And Sarah Harvey, a director of Safe Home at the YWCA in Hanover, noted that Pennsylvania's extensive highway network included the turnpike serves as a primary corridor for sex traffickers. She said major trafficking routes exit throughout the state, and these are areas where prevention and intervention efforts are concentrated. Ms. Harvey explained. She also highlighted how coercion and fear often prevent victims from seeking help, allowing many cases to go undetected by passerbys or police. Now, Harvey contrasted human trafficking with other forms of illicit trade, saying that while commodities like drugs have limited value after a single transaction, exploiting a person can generate repeated profits for the perpetrators. Now, Unstoppable You Ministries, an organization supporting victims of domestic violence, human trafficking, and homelessness, issued a statement underscoring the importance of public awareness. The group pointed to the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission's 11 initiative, which features signage along the highway encouraging reports of suspect trafficking by dialing 11 on mobile devices. Such measures, the statement asserts, address the turnpike's role as a significant trafficking pathway and to equip the public with tools to recognize signs and access local support services. Advocates stress that immediate belief and support for potential victims are critical first steps. Validating a person's experience and connecting them to resources can be transformative. Law enforcement and advocacy groups continue to urge vigilance, noting that heightened awareness and proactive reporting are essential to combating this crime, which often operates in plain sight along the nation's roadways. It's serious business, ladies and gentlemen, and having represented people of the human trafficking nature. And actually, I think the case I did about a year ago, maybe it's been over a year and a half, where I think I've said that we hold the record, my client holds the record for the largest human trafficking sentence in the nation. It's probably gotten there at the time. I think it was like 572 years. So, it's a thing. It really happens. It really, really does. People are entitled to their day in court. Be careful what you wish for, because you may just get it. And but human trafficking is a thing, ladies and gentlemen. It happens out there, and it shouldn't happen to anybody, particularly to children, obviously women. It's slavery. Let's call it what it is. It is slavery, and it is wrong always. Next, how about a couple of Parent of the Year contenders? This time, 2 Ohio fathers lead the pack. All right. Now, in what can only be described as a banner year for exemplary paternal dedication, 2 Ohio fathers have emerged as frontrunners for the coveted 2025 Parent of the Year Award, sponsored this year by the highly prestigious National Institute of Questionable Life Choices. Now, we will bring you the ceremony later this year. Jokingly, ladies and gentlemen. But judges have praised the nominees for their bold, outside-the-box approaches to modern parenting, approaches that boldly prioritize personal convenience over such outdated concepts as, child safety and basic common sense. First, we have Dazwan Richardson, that's Dazhawn, common spelling, a 28-year-old visionary from Salon, Ohio, whose innovative park and shop method has redefined efficiency to busy dads everywhere. On a crisp 40-degree November afternoon, Richardson reportedly realized that obtaining a shopping cart at Aldi's required a quarter, an insurmountable obstacle when one is also burdened with a 1-year-old son. Rather than, say, carrying the child or reconsider the entire errand, Richardson pioneered the groundbreaking technique of leaving the toddler strapped in an unheated Mercedes while he browsed the discount aisles in peace. Witnesses described the infant as crying and literally shivering minor details that pale in comparison to the sheer convenience Richardson achieved. When confronted by police, the forward-thinking father freely admitted his strategy was stupid and potentially life-threatening, earning bonus points from judges for refreshing honesty. Extra credit was awarded for the creative excuse involving a recent blood donation that allegedly made holding a baby physically impossible, an excuse medical professionals have yet to fully endorse. Now, not to be outdone, Northwest Ohio's own Nicholas Steeman, Stemen, has thrown his hat into the ring with a truly fiery display of parental self-sacrifice. After enjoying what he modestly described as at least 10 drinks, though eyewitnesses suspect the actual count may have been slightly higher, Steeman demonstrated remarkable personal preservation instincts by successfully exiting his tireless, flaming 2013 GMC Terrain while leaving his 2-year-old daughter, Liliana, securely buckled in her car seat to enjoy the impromptu barbecue. When first responders arrived, Steeman gallantly informed them that no one else was in the car, a noble attempt to spare firefighters unnecessary exertion. Only after the flames were extinguished did police and firefighters discover the child's remained, at which point Steeman confessed he had blacked out and possessed no recollection of the evening's events. Well, the judicial system, clearly moved by the tragic memory lapse, rewarded his efforts with a modest 22 to 27 and a half year reflection period in state prison. Parenting experts are hailing both men as trailblazers who have finally shattered the oppressive myths that children require constant supervision, warmth, or survival. These fathers have shown us that true parenthood is about freedom. Freedom from car seats, crying, and pesky legal consequences, gushed one anonymous award committee member while wiping away tears of admiration. As the selection committee deliberates, the nation waits with bated breath to see which of these titans of child care will claim the crystal trophy, shaped ironically like a fully functioning cart seatbelt. Whoever wins, one thing is certain: 2025 has set an impossibly high bar for future nominees. Good luck to all the dads out there trying to top leaving your freezing infant in a parking lot or roasting your toddler like a marshmallow. Truly, inspiration comes in all temperatures. Obviously, ladies and gentlemen, true stories, but yes, a little sarcasm thrown in there. Next, this day in legal history, November 21st, 1620. The Mayflower Compact was signed. Yes, while anchored off Cape Cod, the Pilgrim leaders signed the Mayflower Compact, a short social contract-style agreement establishing self-government for the Plymouth colony, often cited as a precursor to later American constitutional ideas. On November 21st, 1789, North Carolina becomes the 12th state to ratify the United States Constitution after initially refusing to do so without the Bill of Rights. Its November 21st convention vote helps solidify the new federal union. And on November 21st, 1990, junk bond king Michael Milken sentenced in federal court in New York. That's right. He got 10 years in prison, later reduced, and heavy fines after pleading guilty to securities law violations, marking one of the most high-profile white-collar prosecutions of the year. And guess what? He still has tons of money and now is actually seen as a philanthropist. Go figure. The king of junk bonds. I remember when all that went down. How about our quote of the day? The life of the law has not been logic. It has been experience. The felt necessities of the time, the prevalent moral and political theories, institutions of public policy, avowed or unconscious, even the prejudices which judges share with their fellow men, have had a good deal more to do than the syllogism in determining the rules by which men should be governed. Oliver Wendell Holmes, 1881. Now, this enduring observation from Justice Holmes remains one of the most cited reminders that law is a human institution shaped by history and context as much as by formal reasoning. And finally, as we head into the weekend, our dumb criminal of the day. A Florida man. Can you imagine? What a shocking turn of events in the Sunshine State. Because nothing says Florida Monday quite like a sophisticated gentleman commandeering a forklift for the noble purpose of giving a helpless ATM an unsolicited midnight tour of Tallahassee's finest neighborhoods. In a display of unparalleled ingenuity that surely left local law enforcement in awe, our unnamed protagonist allegedly liberated both the heavy machinery and the automated teller from their mundane existences, treating the quiet streets to an impromptu parade of industrial chaos. Home surveillance and body cam footage, generously provided for our viewing pleasure, capture the majestic spectacle of a forklift casually cruising residential roads, no doubt adhering strictly to all the posted speed limits. When officers finally interrupted this visionary escapade with their pesky questions, "What's up, bro?" the suspect offered the airtight explanation that he had merely dropped this thing over here before demonstrating Olympic-level sprinting form in a valiant attempt to extend the evening's entertainment. Tragically, his athletic career was cut short. He was apprehended without injury, sparing the community further exposure to his entrepreneurial spirit. Now, a thorough search of the area later uncovered such incriminating evidence as clothing and wait for it, actual burglary tools, because apparently subtlety is overrated. When instructed to sit down like a civilized human being during the arrest, the suspect delivered the timeless defense of, quote, "I haven't done anything," end quote, a statement destined for the legal Hall of Fame. Well, the Tallahassee Police Department, ever the buzzkills, reaffirmed their tiresome commitment to community safety and holding criminals accountable, thereby ruining what was clearly just an innocent joyride with a side of grand theft and attempted ATM kidnapping. Another quiet night in Florida, folks. Another quiet night. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have for today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you next week. And remember, the Constitution matters.